You are listening to the New American Media.
Thanks, George Orwell, for manifesting direct from this memory hole of history to impress on us these messages. We're told we need safety, which is precious, yes, but can a society that can enforce all its laws ever progress? Hindsight shows that many figures guilty of thought crime turned out to be luminaries and heroes before their time. But if a surveillance state had reigned then in this form and design, just think of all the progress we may have all been denied. Could lobbies for women's or gay rights have appeared and thrived? Would revolutionary ideals have materialized? Would science have pioneered or even survived if every word had been monitored by thought police and spies? Big Brother brings chilling effects, freezing our collective hopes. He doesn't protect our safety, but protects the status quo, and threatens this internet, the one channel yet uncontrolled, whose openness we are now called upon to effect and uphold.
Greetings. Greetings, universe. Welcome to Agree to Disagree. This is Friday, June 21st, 2013. You are listening to Juice Media, Rap News 15. Big Brother is watching. And that's relevant. Why is it relevant? I beg you to ponder the question, why is it relevant that Big Brother is watching? Have you followed the NSA spy story? Have you followed it? So, before we hear, if you've got nothing to hide, you've got nothing to worry about. Let's examine that for just a brief second. When all of your cell phone data, your GPS locations, all of your text messages, all of the photos that you've sent back and forth and received, all of your emails, everything's being snooped on and stored in a massive government database. By the way, don't believe that they're just keeping your metadata. Don't believe it. Don't believe it. Don't believe it. It's a tip of the iceberg. But hey, good news. Breaking news. Edward Snowden to be charged with espionage. You heard about that, right? Glad you heard about that one. That's probably what you do when somebody alerts, the proper officials. You alert the masses that the Constitution of the United States is being violated. They bring out the word espionage is a time to bring out the word treason. There's a Fourth Amendment against unreasonable search and seizure. I would say a massive dragnet to spy on every single human in America. Well, for the world, rather. I'd say that's an unreasonable search and seizure. There's a clear-cut definition of the Fourth Amendment. And just by the way, Michael Hastings, 33-year-old journalist, died in a car crash this week in Los Angeles. We're going to have to talk about this. We're going to have to talk about it and how it relates. Let me just read you this, and we're going to bring in our special guest, John B. Wells. He's the Saturday night host of Coast to Coast AM. He'll be in just one second. This is All Nightmare Long by Metallica. Luck runs out. Crawl from the wreckage one more time. Horrific memory twists the mind. Dark, rutted, cold, and hard to turn. Path of destruction, feel it burn. Still life. Incarnation, still life. Infamy. Hallucination. Heresy, still you run. What's to come? What's today? 'Cause we hunt you down without mercy. Hunt you down all nightmare long. Feel us breathe upon your face. Feel us shift every move we trace. Hunt you down without mercy. Hunt you down all nightmare long. Yeah. Luck. Runs. You crawl back in, but your luck runs out. What's going on? Are we being hunted? I'm ready to take out a restraining order against my own federal government. I think this snooping is beyond ridiculous. I think it's beyond ridiculous. So without further ado, let's bring in our special guest, John B. Wells. I think he has a thought or two on this.
Hello.
Good morning, John. You're live on the air. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
Living the dream, I suppose. I just read some Metallica lyrics from a song called All Nightmare Long, but this dream is feeling like a nightmare a little bit with the NSA and the Hastings thing, so I don't know. You like to use the shotgun out the back door approach. Where do you want to start with? It's been 3 months since we talked. It was the Boston bombing since you were last on our program, so what has you riled up these days and concerned?
Well, it doesn't escape my attention that now there are now two guests that were of the whistleblower variety, or certainly the investigative reporting sorts. That would be Phillip Marshall, the United pilot, and now Michael Hastings, who have departed the planet under questionable circumstances. And After all this talk about, we've all seen it, Obama's kill list, and the fact that he actually has targeted Americans with drone strikes and rubbed them out. I don't think either at that level of government or at the unseen level of government above the one that we see, literally, they don't seem squeamish about taking out people. Mercedes-Benz, you remember Princess Diana.
That's right.
And that whole deal about the paparazzi are after him, so the driver goes crazy, and he's making over 100 miles an hour, and they crash in that tunnel that has the little obelisk over it at about 130 miles per hour. And that thing didn't explode, not like Hastings' car did. So I think I have to go back to Voltaire with the it's dangerous to be right when the government is wrong.
And what did George Orwell say during a time of universal deceit? Truth-telling becomes a revolutionary act.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
Yep. And it seems to be just that book that Bell wrote so many years ago, The Quickening. I've never personally read it. That's just the plain truth of it. But I'm familiar with it enough to know get an idea of its content. It seems like it was quite prophetic because so many things seem to be quickening. All these Turkey, and all these revelations coming forth about the conduct of our security services, which just between ourselves and a few 100,000 of our closest friends here, the NSA has been doing this for a long time. They were traditionally the code breakers and the foreign communications transmissions monitors, but they transferred over to domestic surveillance some time ago. I mean, that's been talked about for really a couple of decades, that the NSA is looking at all the faxes. And then, of course, when the Internet came online, that just makes snooping easier. The problem is that, the good thing is that computers do things very quickly. The problem is that computers do things very quickly. And I was talking with Vince Mazer tonight, who makes the Mazer Geiger counters that we put on caravantomidnight.com. And he said, you can do things in between the frames at such a speed that you wouldn't believe it. And, of course, this is true because you might have heard the Coast to Coast AM program when we were talking about, the shenanigans that the bankers do, and particularly the stock market, when, guys shorted all these gold shares, and the gold didn't even exist. But the computers that they use in these brokerage houses make decisions in just literally nanoseconds. And
that was how you can make $1 million a minute or $1 million an hour or something. I think I remember.
Yeah, $1 million a minute. I think it was.
Yeah, something like that.
And hey, if it's $1 million an hour, I'll take it. Right? I know you would.
Sure enough.
I know you would. So it's beyond. Here's the thing that really gets me, Brian. What we know, and I've said this like I sound like a broken record, but everything that we're becoming aware of now, and we think of it as current technology, we're way behind 2-3 decades, and some say closer to 4 decades. So this should not really come as any surprise. Human beings are going to do this if going to do it. And oh boy, if you got the government paying for it, that's even better. We can really have some fun now because we have a virtually unlimited budget.
Absolutely. When you can go to the printing press yourself, you're not even printing anything, you're just digitizing it. You said something a second ago, John, about the concept of the quickening. You didn't read it. Well, you know what? If that's fair enough, I've never read the National Defense Authorization Act, but I'm well aware of Sections 1021 and 1022 that declare the United States a battlefield and people can be disappeared. And there was the whole debate with Rand Paul saying, well, are you telling us that you're reserving the right to kill U.S. citizens with drones on U.S. soil? They couldn't even answer for how many days? He had to filibuster for, what was it, 18 hours, 19 hours, something like that?
Yeah, that's pretty remarkable. And the thing is again, going back to the broken record analogy, I believe that the Great Awakening that we wanted, really, I think we all wanted it, for 2012, I think it's begun, and it's come in the form of awakening to the fact that we are shrouded in darkness, and have been for some time. And we can see a little glimmer of light, but we got to clear away all this fog and smoke and remove the mirrors so that we can actually see our way to the truth. It'll happen. But unfortunately, I must predict that I think there's going to be a lot of damage between now. We've had our awakening, and there's going to be a lot of damage between the awakening and the actual enlightenment.
take a junkie off the smack, and it's going to be rough sweating and violent outbursts, and it's not going to be pleasant, but it's what needs to happen to get healthy again. And, I'm looking at a couple things here, a few things pulled up in front of me. George Orwell's 1984. You look at different stories here, but it's up 5,000% on Amazon. People are
they say they can't even keep it on the shelves.
I've had my copy for a long time, and in fact, at thenewamericanmedia.com, I have a page. It's called 1984 Watch. I've been concerned about this stuff for years, and like you said, the NSA stuff, this is old. This has been going on for a long time. This is the tip of the iceberg. If people want to talk metadata, that is a smokescreen. They are peeing on your leg and saying that it's raining. That is garbage. If they have that capability, there's no reason why they couldn't have every picture, every text message, every email. It's all there. It's just the tip of the iceberg. That's my thought. Would you tend to agree?
And going back to your heroin analogy, this reminds me, Mark Twain said there are lies, damned lies, and statistics.
Nice.
But I have to use a statistic here because all I have. I just read a report earlier in the week that 70% of the population of this country, the documented part, is on some sort of a prescription medication. 13% are clinically depressed. And, of course, the drug that's most widely distributed is an opioid, or basically it's all the same thing. It's all these different brand names. It's the same drug, whether it's Oxycontin or whether it's hydrocodone or Vicodin or whatever, or Lortab, and there's a dozen different other ones. It's all the same drug. They just add a little something in there so they can actually patent it and put a brand name to it. And when you're dealing with a population that's run by a government like this, and 70% of these people are in profoundly or mildly altered state of consciousness, this does not make for a happy formula, viewing it from a distance.
Well,
and,
absolutely. You talk about an altered state of consciousness. Let's talk about the state of consciousness where you're no longer in this little spacesuit known as our body, that the soul has departed. This Michael Hastings, this 33-year-old journalist. I want to toss two things at you and kind of get your thoughts on it, because you like you said, you led the show just now, saying that you've spoken with two whistleblowers giving out information, and they've been erased from the planet either organically or otherwise. Two quick stories I just want to give you the headlines of. This is from October 13, 2012, out of the Seattle Times. It says, white hat hacker searches for security holes. University of Washington computer scientist, can't really read his name, Tadayoshi Kono, will be featured in a PBS Science show Wednesday for his work that shows how cars, medical devices, and other interconnected gadgets can be hacked. Next story, New York Times, March 9, 2011. Researchers show how a car's electronics can be taken over randomly. And when people start looking into this Michael Hastings story, there's a lot of things that just really aren't adding up, and it has a lot of people concerned that it is a legitimate possibility now that everybody's being spied on, that maybe certain journalists are being silenced. Approach it from any angle you want, because I know you spoke with the guy. What was the content of your conversation with him when he was on your program?
Well, we're getting a few little dropouts here. I take it you can hear my transmission okay?
Yeah, you're coming in good.
Okay. Well, if you don't mind, let me just read a little bit from this email that I just received. It says, well, looks like you're 2 for 2. First, Phillip Marshall, who shoots his 2 children, then his dog, then himself, just before his new book is set to come out. And now handsome Michael Hastings, victim of the CIA's infamous one-car traffic fatality. Now, I won't read the whole thing, but down at the bottom it says, I spoke with a restaurant employee of the restaurant that's on the corner. He verified the LAPD had put down these chalk marks. Neighbors had told him that the sound of the collision was so loud they thought a helicopter had crashed. We discussed the driver being drunk, but agreed that at 4:30 a.m. you're either drunk, asleep, or becoming sober. Walked over early the next morning to speak to the gas station employee who was on duty the morning of the crash. The station is at the corner of Melrose and Highland. And I know that neighborhood pretty well. I used to live over there.
Yeah, same here.
He saw a white Mercedes driving about 90 to 100 miles per hour down Highland. It was actually bouncing up and down as it approached Melrose. He didn't see it crash, but did see the aftermath, as well as the paramedics and fire trucks. I asked him if 2 cars were involved. He said, no, just the one. So what is clear is that he didn't apply the brakes, and there was no ordinary reason for driving 90 miles an hour at that time of the morning. And this writer says, I do wonder if the brakes were tampered with and if the car was made to go at an ever-increasing speed involuntarily as those Toyotas did a few years ago.
Oh, that's right.
So nothing about this looks good. I mean, this really is the infamous one-car traffic fatality. And again, Diana's car didn't explode. Cars don't normally explode. If they're hit from behind, well, then sure, if you rupture the gas tank and you got sparks going from the metal hitting metal, then okay. But man, this thing is, I'm sure you've seen the video, it is on fire all over. Now, I wasn't there. Engine was launched out of the car like 50 yards.
Yeah.
The engine?
Yeah, this is a Mercedes. This isn't a 20-year-old POS. This is a pretty well-built vehicle, a brand new one, as I gather.
Oh, yeah, these things are built like a bank vault. And somewhere up there, if you look around on the net, I go to so many windows, I can't keep up with them. Eventually I just throw up my hands and go, okay, I get it. I got enough data here. I think I can put a story together.
Right.
But they show the crash test dummies are all lashed into a Mercedes, the same type as his, I presume, because that was the purpose of the comparison. And they crashed that thing at a high rate of speed, and it didn't explode. I mean, it looks like this thing was hit with a harpoon rocket or something. Well, I don't think that it was necessarily. I'm just saying that's what it looks like.
I've been digging into this, and there's all these options out there. Could he have suffered some sort of a hemorrhage or a brain situation, and the foot goes on the gas, and he's unconscious, and he speeds and goes over it and hits something? Could there have been a drone strike? Could there have been a bomb planted? Like these two articles I just read, hey, technology's great, except if they build back doors into all of it, I guess someone could take control of your car like a video game and speed you up and crash you dead. I have no idea, but I know Hancock Park. I know that that's a light residential area. It's not the PCH where someone could be, easily doing 100 miles an hour. You have to work to do 100 miles an hour down in that area of Highland over by Melrose. You got to work at it.
Yeah, he'd have to be almost suicidal to do something like that, because any of these Mercedes-Benzes will do 130, 140 miles an hour, no problem whatsoever. And they'll get there relatively quickly. So he could get to 90 or 100 miles an hour in certainly no more than 4 blocks, easily. But the thing is I repeat, he would have to be in a suicidal frame of mind to have done something like that. And I spoke with Michael for several hours on the phone, and he was, you could tell he was kind of moving around. He was jacked up, meaning he was excited, and he was very focused on the conversation, just going, just talking very rapidly. But
do you know when? Do you remember when that was? Within the past month, within the past year? Because, by the way, for any of the listeners, if you're not aware, as I previously mentioned, John is the Saturday night host of Coast to Coast AM, and man, you really should consider signing up for the Coast Insider. It's like $6 a month or something like that, and you have access to 3 years of shows. You can obviously sign up for this 1 month, go back and listen to his interview, if only for that purpose. I do recommend it. I have that myself. Was it fairly recent? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, it was February of this year.
Okay, just a few months ago, 3-4 months ago.
Yeah, and it's just.
And he was pretty fired up during like you said. You could tell he was excited.
It wasn't like woo-woo land. It wasn't. He seemed very steady, and he was just talking about how General McChrystal and the guys over there were drinking heavy, having a big time, making it as much of a party as they possibly could, and that it was the general consensus there that Afghanistan situation was an unwinnable war, absolutely unwinnable, and there was a lot of deal making between the two sides, and Karzai is not the most reliable buddy partner that we could possibly have in position over there. He's negotiating with the Taliban now. So.
It's fine. We're arming Al Qaeda in Syria. No big deal, John.
Yeah, but the thing about it is his investigations also led to General Petraeus, and the thing is I really don't see General Petraeus having to step down from his position because of an extramarital affair. I don't see that happening.
Me neither.
That seems like a convenient way to go ahead and exit stage right. So, this is all conjecture, Brian. I'm just saying it's it's difficult to go by the old Sherlock Holmes rule of once you eliminate the impossible, whatever remains must be the truth. Well, it's a more complex world now than in the late 19th century, and everything is possible. Anything that's computer control like that, I can tell you this, after a long conversation, that's why I wasn't able to join you as quickly as I would have liked to tonight. After a long conversation with my engineer friend, anything that has a computer attached to it can be hacked. It would be no problem to hack into. Just let your imagination run wild with this. But anything that's computer controlled, aircraft, automobile, cell phone, computer, your oven, your smart TV, anything that's connected to a computer can be hacked and its functions manipulated, period. End of story. That much is some of the possible that we can absolutely stamp our seals of approval on. That is a fact.
And don't all of the government motors cars, or the General Motors cars, whatever we want to call it, don't they all come equipped with OnStar, with real-time, second-by-second GPS tracking?
Yes, they do.
And don't all the luxury cars tend to have even more of that fancy schmancy, hey, I got to have these new toys type of things?
Ever-increasing amounts of apparatus with every model year.
And at some point, I'll just sit in my room like an avatar and send my hologram out to do the work for me, and I can just watch football or something. We're headed that way, aren't we?
Well, when you've got an automobile that senses that you're about to hit somebody, or something's in the road ahead of you, and it can swerve for you, and it can slow down for you, and this and that. And what does that tell you?
That we're not in control, are we?
No, we're not. It tells you that if you get into that computer, you can do anything with that car you want, except maybe turn the wheel, but possibly even turn the wheel. If I don't know how this Mercedes-Benz was equipped, but if it has anything like the Japanese near equivalent, then even the steering could have been tampered with, could have been manipulated. And what would account for? Let's just assume that this eyewitness was correct and the car was hopping up and down. What would that mean? Why would a car hop up and down or make a hopping motion? Well, it seems to me that what would be happening is somebody would be trying to get on the brakes, but they're anti-lock brakes, so there aren't going to be any skid marks necessarily. My old Benz is an old 85 I had. It would you might get the wheels to lock, and it had ABS, but I'll guarantee you they won't lock now. Those wheels will not lock on pavement at all. So there aren't going to be any skid marks, and there weren't any skid marks. So if it seems to me that if his car was hopping, it could be that he was pumping those brakes and just kept jamming it, and it appeared to be doing that because the nose was diving from full brake on the automobile while it's under full acceleration. That might certainly give the illusion of the car hopping. So I don't know.
It's in the this is all in the backyard of the Hollywood sign. For everyone out there, this is La La Land. This is where movies are made, and I know we've seen enough Born Identity, fill in the blank, any CIA spy movie type thing, where someone realizes they're not in control of the vehicle. I watched a Doctor Who on this recently. It doesn't matter. Where the technology takes over and the humans trying to get out and they're trapped, they're locked inside their own car and it starts accelerating without them. These things are legitimately possible. Let me give you this one little component of it for the listeners out there. I know you've been studying this, John, but this is from the Salon.com article about Michael Hastings. It says, and of course, the driving force behind any such speculation regarding could there be other theories about this death, the driving force behind such speculation has been the content of Hastings' reporting. The Los Angeles Times reported that Hastings was, quote, researching a story about a privacy lawsuit brought by the Florida socialite Jill Kelly against the Department of Defense and the FBI, end quote. His final BuzzFeed story addressed the NSA surveillance revelations and slammed democratic two-facedness on civil liberties issues. That's point number one. Point number two, John, from WikiLeaks on their Twitter feed, it says Michael Hastings contacted WikiLeaks lawyer Jennifer Robinson just a few hours before he died, saying that the FBI was investigating him.
Well, the FBI's got some good riflemen. They were all over the Waco scene some years ago.
In your backyard.
And so they don't just go around, in their suits and just investigate people. These are some serious cats, and they follow orders. And that's what people in these services do. They follow orders. Even if it's an unpleasant order, they'll still follow it to the letter. There's no conscience when it comes to the mission, and people should keep this in mind. You and I and people on the street and so forth who are not in this business, even if we were confronted by someone that we knew was a murderer and we were armed, we would still, there's the potential that we would but shooting this person is really kind of rough. These guys will not hesitate, not for a second. Not for a second. There is no reservation there. They have the full power and do whatever they want with impunity, or rather immunity. So, it's depressing if you want to know the truth. It's
I could tell it when I talked to you off air yesterday. I could tell you're a little, I could tell. I could definitely tell. And
it's pretty hard not to shed a tear for this kid. He was only 33.
Well, and you knew him. You had him on for several hours, too. This wasn't just some guy you're reading about in the paper. This is a guy that you knew from your show. This is
two guys that I knew now. Marshall, he's gone, too. And I'll tell you, now nothing here on planet Earth, after several decades of being enabled and allowed to walk around on planet Earth, I've gotten to the point where not very much would surprise me. However, to hear that Marshall had killed his 2 teenage kids and his dog and himself, I'm sorry, but that's a little bit of a stretch, because I never picked up any of that. No mood swing. He was always in a good mood when I talked to him, but not too good of a mood. You know how some people sometimes they laugh just a little bit too loud?
Right.
And you're going, woo, what's going on here? There wasn't any of that with Phillip Marshall, and Hastings just seemed like just a young fire squirter, that was on a mission, and he was. And I think he just bumped up against something hard this time. I really do. I just don't think that Hastings was running 100 miles an hour down Highland just because he felt like doing it at 4:30 in the morning when he knows the bars and the after-hours clubs have let out, and particularly in that neighborhood. Well, it's just stupid,
Well, it's like you said. I think there was the bouncing. I mean, I've been there. I know that there's speed bumps. I actually haven't been to that stretch in a second. I'm going to have to go right back over there, obviously. But yeah, it just doesn't seem like it makes sense. And this story really started gaining traction for me once it happened when I have a radio co-host, Blake Wally. He's on a show, Eccentric Perspective. And he covered the story one day, and the next day he just came back. He's like, this was a straight-out assassination. And he sent me this question. He wanted me to ask you this. It's a couple of components, so take it wherever you want in the answer. But he wanted to ask, was the assassination done as planned, or did it go sloppily awry? Was it meant to scare other journalists from coming forward? Will they get in line, or will this backfire? So there's a few components to it, but did this go awry? Is this intended to scare journalists, or will it backfire?
Well, I think it's entirely, who knows, really. I can certainly make a case. I mean, to be a proper... To properly analyze something like this and just see what the possibilities might be, there's the obvious conclusions that we could jump to, and then there may exist some whether or not the mission to assassinate him, theoretically speaking, we don't know if it's gone awry because we don't know what the original plan was. But certainly, if there was no intention, if it was in fact an assassination.
And I'm with you there, the if. I'm looking around digging. I'm not jumping to that hard, concrete conclusion necessarily, but it's something doesn't seem right. It reminds me of Benghazi. The more you learn, the less it makes sense. But I'm with you on that.
Yeah, it's and certainly the collateral effect of silencing another investigative journalist would be that it sends a message to the others. I mean, I don't know. Who knows? Given the timing of everything, first Breitbart drops dead over there in California, over there in L.A.
Yep, he did.
Then and people reported that I wasn't there. I didn't see the poor man's dead body. So I don't know if he was just red. On him or something. It's like whatever. You don't know that. And I really wish people would stop putting that stuff out there on the net. If you want to chat about this privately, that's fine, but do some research before you make any declarations, because that's not helping anything. It's not helping any of us find the truth of these matters if there's so much chaff, if there's too many sky patties flying around, if you'll excuse the expression. And certainly a collateral effect of killing a man, a journalist, nothing speaks louder than a dead body. And so you got Breitbart, and now you got this. You got Rosen being targeted at Fox, and you have all these other journalists.
But before you jump from Breitbart, John, don't forget that Andrew Breitbart's coroner, his coroner died of an arsenic poisoning. Yeah, he died from arsenic poisoning. 2 weeks later or something? Well, who doesn't eventually die of arsenic poisoning, John? It's a common occurrence, right? Come on.
Occurring substance, and he was probably just inhaling dirt on his yard.
Sure, why not? Talking about cow patties, I guess that's a line of bull that we can believe. But go ahead. You were mentioning James Rosen being targeted.
Yeah, I mean, all these people are being targeted, and this is from the 19th of June. This is France 24. U.S. seizure of journalist records called chilling. The U.S. government's secret seizure of Associated Press phone records had a chilling effect on news gathering by the agency and other news organizations. Well, yeah, and if there are a couple of dead journalists lying around, well, I guess that might have an even more chilling effect. In fact, it might have a freezing effect. I mean, nobody wants to get rubbed out, but look, we're there. We're there now. Look at this administration. I mean, I know you mentioned the shotgun out the back door. Well, here we go. One in each hand. They're both double. Bring it, pal. We got a base here. These are our allies. You're too late with too little. We'll hear. You show up here, we're going to kick your rumps hard. So bring it. What did Obama do? Backed off. He's just backed off. So there's nothing that'll chill people out quite like the fear of death being delivered and visited upon them. So, yeah.
Well, Aaron Schwartz, you remember Aaron Schwartz? He was. Then he killed himself, is the story, and maybe.
Yeah, the computer guy. Yeah, so did the D.C. madam who told Alex Jones right on his program, "No, I'm not going to hang myself or anything," and she was found hanging in I believe her garage. Like I said, Brian, these are some serious people. These are very serious people, and a lot of times they'll go on with their murdering, knowing that end game is in sight, and they're on the losing end of it, and they'll complete their mission anyway because that's all they have. This is what these people do in their lives. This is not TV. This is not a happy ending at the end where the assassin winds up falling in love with somebody and decides to, repent and won't kill anybody anymore. No, this is the life these people have chosen to live. This is what they do, and if they're given the order, they execute it. And that's all there is to it. And we are living in extraordinary, dangerous times. Actually, my father died today, on this day, 12 years ago. And I asked him a question, which was, if grandfather predicted the war with Japan 10 years before it happened, what do you predict? And he looked at me and he said, the thing about the next one is, you won't. If that wasn't prophetic, I don't know what would be.
Say that prophetic part one more time. You cut out right there.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's this type of phone. I said, what do you predict? If your father, my grandfather, predicted the war with Japan 10 years before it happened, what do you predict?
Right.
And he said, the thing about the next one is, you won't know who you're fighting. I mean, just as sober as a judge, he just looked at me and those words came out, and I've never forgotten them. Never will.
We are a divided nation, and it's intentional. Left, right, Republican, Democrat, 99% versus 1%, war on women, women versus men, the races against the races, the religions against the religions, the haves, the have-not. I mean, go down the line. We are being split, siphoned. We are being cordoned into little areas where we feel rage toward everything, and we don't know how or why. And we don't know what the plan out of this is. The next thing, John, that I feel, to paraphrase what you just said, I've relayed it this way. the next war that's coming, and I surely hope I'm wrong, of course. I certainly don't sit up and, pray to my maker that I really hope to see this in my lifetime. That's why I'm doing radio. I'm trying to, this is the best thing I can do to try to steer it away from all of the bad stuff, I think, because I'm not going to pick up a gun in offense. I want to pick up the microphone and talk. But the way I said it is, this is going to be a blend of a revolutionary war, a civil war, and a world war all at the same time, and nobody will know who they're fighting. I think those are very wise words that you were told, because I feel that in my gut, and it's the reason I keep doing this, because I don't want that to happen.
No, neither do I. There are several. I'm sure there are some people sitting around with their deer rifles and their boxes of MREs just waiting for Armageddon. But you're doing. The thing is that I don't find anything other than trying to raise awareness among our people as to the dangers that are confronting them now, unbeknownst to many of them. I can't think of anything that I would rather do. This is. I don't consider myself to be psychotic. I'm not even neurotic. Some may argue that, but I don't think I am. But you reach a point where you realize this is undeniably dangerous, and I believe that this country may be in a cold civil war, and it's our duty. I said this on the air last weekend. It's our duty to see to it that this cold civil war remains cold. We cannot allow this to ridiculous as this may sound. When's the last time you watched V for Vendetta?
Yeah, it's been a minute. It has been a minute, but I have been studying the Revolutionary War a little bit. But it's been a couple, maybe 3 years since V.
I'll tell you the truth. You need to watch it again, because that was a prophetic film, and it was interesting. The cops were talking, and one of them said to the other, "What do you think's going to happen?" And the other one said, "What usually happens when people without guns stand up to people with guns." And there was another part in there where it's like, yes, this great gathering will occur, and then somebody's going to do something stupid. There's going to be a little trigger point where somebody shoots a kid, or whether it's one of the citizens, or whether it's one of the law enforcement people, and that's going to be the flashpoint. And at that point, all bets are off. We cannot allow this to happen. We really can't. I don't know how this is going to be solved, frankly, without beneficent external influence. When you were talking about all the different factions going at each other,
yeah.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And so what is going to be the great calmer downer? What's going to be the unifying element that brings people to their senses? How much time do we have to get hold of our inner rational, or let's leave that alone and just say logical selves, and just decide what we're going to participate in and what we're not going to participate in? How long? How much time do we have? I think it's possible that we can get ahead of this thing, but I think it's going to be a pretty rough time, Brian, trying to get our government to admit that they're run by the bankers, and they are. Just like there was a guy talking with George Norrie last night about he had infiltrated the Medellin cartel, and some ridiculous number of tons of American currency went right up to the Federal Reserve, and it got turned into whatever the Colombian currency is. But if you look at the Constitution of Colombia, they're not permitted to have a dollar account. But they did anyway. And all of these banks that have paid 8- and 9-figure, and in some cases, 8- and 9-figure fines.
Oh, HSBC just got busted doing something like that, I believe.
Yeah, $762 billion fine, or some ridiculous amount. It was unbelievable the amount of money they paid. But that's all that happened. The only person, according to this guest last night on George Norrie's show, was the whistleblower. He's the only one that got any jail time, because he was actually inside the apparatus. One else has gone to jail. Now, when you got people like, and I'll tell you, they're on the left, and they're on the right too. I can think of several ones on the right that need to go. Marco Rubio, out of here.
Lindsey
See ya.
Graham.
No more Bush. Jeb Bush, forget it. Did you hear what that guy said the other day? To me, he made a complete idiot of himself. He says that we need the illegal immigrants to be made legal here because Mexicans are much more fertile than, I guess he meant we Caucasians, so therefore we need them for our labor force. I mean, I challenge you to even make up something as stupid as that.
That was ridiculously stupid. I had to watch it 3 times and it still doesn't make sense. I don't really get what he was going for.
And then this idiot McDermott that says this, you know, on these buses there were placards on the side that had the faces of all these terrorists. Well, they're not very many of them are Caucasians, and he thinks this is racist and it encourages profiling, not only of racial profiling but also religious profiling. It's like, how are you going to run a nation of people with idiots like McDermott? And who's this other guy, Lindsey Graham? I'm sorry. I think Lindsey Graham needs to go do something else.
I'm clapping if you can't hear me. I've been calling
and
for
John
Lindsey
and
Graham
John
and John
McCain.
McCain to go away, out to pasture. McCain and Graham can go hold hands and skip off into the sunset because they're not welcome in this government.
Here's another one for you, Mitch McConnell. Get out of here. Okay? Get out of here. We need to get some... Now, I'll tell you who I do like. I like that guy that looks like... Isn't that actor's name Barry Pepper? He was the rifleman in Saving Private Ryan.
Oh, okay, yeah.
His name's, oh my gosh, Trey Gowdy.
Yes.
Now, this is a serious cat. I like this guy so far very much.
Tough investigator. Great questions. Absolutely.
Yeah, and he's the one that told Secretary Clinton, ma'am, I'd have you fired, or something to that effect. So it's like, what are you going to do with an attorney general that says, I don't remember, I don't know, but won't resign? What do you do with the Secretary of State who says, what difference does it make? And they got a bunch of idiots out there just thinking that Hillary being president would just be the best. It's like, look, there are ignorant people out there who can be helped. All they need is information, and they won't be ignorant anymore. However, there are also stupid people out there, too, for whom there is no hope and no help. There's just stupid people, and they're not... They should be quarantined before they affect others. Well, how can you tell they're stupid? You can tell they're stupid when they refuse to acknowledge facts, and when they say things like, when they're asked, like these university students that were recently asked, do you have a problem with the government spying on you? And they were like, no, the government should spy on all the Fox News reporters.
I did see that one.
It's like, I mean, what do you do with that?
Well, what you do with that, John, is you simply say, hey, let me take you back a couple of years. You remember the Death Star landing, like all of the Darth Vader, you know, that Death March music coming in. You got Dick Cheney and you got Donald Rumsfeld and you have George Bush. What if they were doing that to MSNBC? Are you still cool with it? Because that
no, the thing about it is that the left is just so strident. They scream and squawk louder than everybody else. And you know, in talking with some people recently about the Tea Party. It's like, you know, you hear all this stuff about they're racist, this. I said, they're not racist. They just looked at me like, oh, you've got to be kidding. I said, listen, I visited a couple of those rallies, and I saw a lot of black people there, too. And there weren't any signs of any racist anything there. In fact, there were only signs of unity, because all of the people there want the Constitution adhered to, period.
And the Constitution protects everybody.
That's correct. You know, it's that the difference is that if we found out that this was going on, if we found out that an administration had targeted Democrat, liberal, or otherwise left-wing groups by using the IRS to deny their exemption statuses and so forth, we would be just as outraged if official power came against our political opposites as we would be if those powers were used against us.
Especially,
but the left is not like that.
Well, especially at a time when Sandy Hook and Aurora are being exploited to try to take guns away and limit our Second Amendment rights, especially when the NSA is violating our Fourth Amendment rights, snooping on every citizen. It doesn't, especially when the First Amendment, you look at all the intimidation of everybody, Cheryl Atkinson at CBS, James Rosen, go down the line. it's a nonstop assault on all of the essential basic liberties in the Bill of Rights right now. This is not a left-right issue. You're exactly right about that. This is an American issue, and people need to stop paying attention to party lines because it's not doing them any favors at this point.
You know, and going back to what you were saying earlier about, you were just kind of painting a picture of a general psyop, a general picture of a psychological operation. Wouldn't it be interesting if it turned out that the reason that a CBS reporter, they're kind of liberal, aren't they? It's like, yeah, which means all of you journalists had better chill out, mind your P's and Q's, and don't be sticking your noses where they don't belong. It doesn't make any difference to us if you appear to be aligned with the left or the right. If you're a journalist and you're poking your nose where it doesn't belong, we will slice it off.
That's the Chicago way, John. The AP was one of the first ones. The AP was one of the first ones where it crossed over. Then it was Cheryl Atkinson at CBS. Now it's every single stinking American, and let's just say every single person on the globe with their with the satellite systems that they have. Everybody is being tracked and spied and cataloged and GPS logged. No dictator has ever had the ability to do what a bad person could do right now. Whether this guy is the bad guy, the next woman, the next guy, who knows what it is. But the turnkey tyranny, as Edward Snowden said, the infrastructure is in place to flip the switch if you don't mind killing a few 100 million people and taking complete control over. And that's something that no Republican or Democrat should ever have the ability to do, in my opinion.
Well, I'm with you, and the thing is as we go along here, our conversation evolves, and so do my thoughts around the things we're discussing. I have hope that I can only hope that people can straighten this out, but I do not have faith in sufficient strength to feel confident that this is going to be straightened out. Even if this is not true, the fact that it's out on the net is very disturbing. There's something very big is going on. A Jacksonville family told to flee. Goons intimidate her in her own driveway, and of course, now this is from Steve Quayle's website, and a lot of people find Steve to be, strident and a bit over the top. However, his books are really good, and his research into things such as just archaeological and anthropological information being suppressed, for everything from giants to ancient tombs and where the aliens cross over and who they really are. Garage sale this weekend, selling, giving away everything we can't take with us, which is pretty much everything. It's just stuff. Anyway, a white unmarked police car with very dark tinted windows that you couldn't see into pulled right up in front of our driveway. Nobody got out, just sat there for 5 minutes, then drove away. My spirit was very uncomfortable and alarmed, to say the least. There were supposed to be, now, enough of that. These people are just, they're just trying to get out of town and sell everything off. But they're known to be friends of people who are like the Michael Hastings of the world and the Phillip Marshalls and the Stephen Quayles and so forth. There are reports that a large number of troops are coming into Virginia, and they're not U.S. troops either. I talked to an this man he's done so much. He was an ex-spy plane pilot. He was ex-skunk works guy, a project manager there, ex-nuclear facilities director and so forth. And I said, say, why do we have Russians and American troops doing joint training exercises
in Colorado,
in this country, in Colorado and up in Alaska and elsewhere? And he said that he felt it was because we had a common problem. I said, well, what do you think it is? I said, what's the Islamic problem down on Russia's southern border? And he said, yeah, that's what I think it is. But what if it's something other than that? I mean, what is the reason?
What if we're the problem?
I got to throw this in the mix too. Did you get the word about AT&T is releasing? Some people are already getting these Amber Alerts for missing children or abducted children or whatever, but you're also going to start getting presidential alerts. Now, my question, and you can turn off the Amber Alerts in your settings, but you can't turn off the presidential alert. So I'm wondering, why would Barack want to send me an alert? The only thing that I can think of is either a national emergency, which would either be civil unrest or an external threat or some sort of a disaster that's occurred here. And I think what we may be looking at, I'm just saying, what's the one thing that it would take to get NATO troops or maybe even former Warsaw Pact troops in here? Because, they have advanced, they're used to dealing with radiation because of, I just tipped my hand, because of Chernobyl and several other incidents. I really think that we may be looking at a nuclear incident here of some sort, not necessarily something big, but just something just big enough to scare everybody. A little dirty bomb, something. You heard about these Ku Klux Klan guys, I think they were, that were going to irradiate mosques with X-ray machines that were formerly used in the medical industry. And did you hear about this? I mean, it's crazy.
I didn't catch that one.
Oh yeah. So I mean, that's almost too stupid to believe anybody would really. Out in front of mosques and irradiate everybody and just give them cellular dysfunction. Without them even knowing it, and these Geiger counters are real good at picking up X-rays. In fact, they're a little bit hyper sensitive to X-rays, so it's not a bad thing. But see, is this story real or is it just a plant? Before every disaster, or what we call a disaster here, like a Sandy Hook or a Boston Marathon or a 9/11 or whatever, there's always a drill within a couple of weeks beforehand. Have you noticed this pattern?
Yeah, you know what, John? I think last Thursday or Friday was Flag Day, and I sent out on the tweet, I said, from American_media_, I said, Happy False Flag Day. Happy False Flag Day.
Good times.
Yeah, there's a drill right beforehand.
What were these guys from Kraft International doing standing around now? Were they photoshopped into the... Here's the thing. This is why it's so screwed up, Brian. Were those people really from Kraft International standing there exactly the same, both of them holding their fingers into their right ears, which you never do if you're on an operation. You don't touch your ear to let everybody know you got a comm on. No. So were these guys photoshopped into the picture to make it appear that they were there? Because you can do anything with photography now, and it takes somebody on the security services level to determine if this really good photograph is real or if it's fake. I mean, you have to be practically a specialist to figure it out. And even then, it may fool you. I mean, the experts are frequently baffled, which means that there are very few experts in the world. So, is this just more disinformation? In other words, are you and I barking up the wrong tree based on our interpretation of the reports of events that we are allowed to access?
Meaning
it's like the CIA guy said, Chase Brandon, I interviewed him on the show one time, his book, The Crypto's Conundrum. He said, look, we're an agency that's known for our failures because when things run right, nobody knows what we're doing.
Like a plumber. When you do your job right, nobody notices. When you screw up, the whole house floods with feces. Yeah,
so what if they decide to go the other way and go, okay, look, why don't we, instead of making this look like a botched assassination plot, let's say, let's just make it look like an assassination plot. And then let's turn it over to the conspiracy theorists who will blow it all out of proportion, and then people will get bored with it and it'll go away. And it was a straight-up assassination. But there's so much doubt. Well, maybe it was, maybe it wasn't, but no, how could they right in front of you, and you now don't believe that it was an assassination. And end of story.
It's like a triple misdirection, is what we're saying.
Yeah, that's the name of the game, man. You know, when you go out on the battlefield, you got one general over here, one over there, and they both got troops. They all got guns and knives. But it's one of those two generals. His mind is going to have the proper strategic combination going that is superior to the other generals, and he's the guy that's going to win. It's his troops that are going to win. It won't just be the guns and knives. It'll be the mind behind those guns and knives.
Now you're talking Sun Tzu, Art of War. Let me get back to those troops in Virginia. Elaborate on that for a second. That my ears perked up at that one.
Well, it's just a wild, random report. I'll see if I can run it down while I tell you what I know of it. But it is that let's. And this is really going to pull down. I hope we don't get any dropouts here in the line.
We've had the regular. We'll just call them the NSA a little bits. You know, I like to say it's their way of letting us know that we know that they're there. And I'm okay with that. Yeah. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, British intelligence agencies secretly access the world's phone calls and internet traffic. I mean, this is well known that they do this. It's just that now isn't it funny? Isn't it funny? There seems to be some extremely resilient credibility that even the mainstream media that we scoff at mostly because of the stories they choose to ignore, and then they just dwell on certain stories forever until we're all sick of the sight of it. Isn't it funny how they maintain this credibility so that even though it's been known among people like yourself and myself and many others who are listening right now that these things happen, that the NSA has been we don't pay any attention to it until it hits the mainstream media. Then, now all of a sudden it's like it just happened.
Then it's real.
Well, it didn't just happen.
Well, but don't forget, though, Fox, half of the people over there are trying to justify it now. No, it's for safety, it's for safety. I'm like, there's the neocons I remember from the Bush administration. There we go. It's fun to like Fox when a Democrat's in office. It's fun to like MSNBC when a Republican's in office. But then they show their true colors again. You're like, I knew I didn't really, really trust you guys for some reason. Justifying giving away your liberty for a little bit of security. That's just... That is, I don't know, John.
Mm-hmm.
They take their mask off.
There are several of these foreign troops.
Yeah, and that's.
Did we get a dropout?
Yeah, well, they.
Okay, sorry.
They do what they do.
What we got here.
It makes it more fun because we're talking about the spy agency. I think it's hilarious. I love it. Every time I talk with Stuart Rhodes with Oath Keepers, every time I talk with, go down the line. When I'm talking with somebody that really has pointed opinions, they tend to say hello. It's kind of funny to me.
Who the NT claimed to know personally. Yeah, this was Nashua, New Hampshire. Nashua. I've never been there. Don't know how it's properly pronounced. But Nashua, New Hampshire residents witness armored vehicles patrolling the streets of their usually peaceful town. But this isn't really the one that I was looking for. Foreign troops and armored vehicles spotted in New Hampshire, Florida, and West Virginia. Pamela Schufert was hell-bent on spreading her fear. Yes, that's absolutely true. But there's so much of this on the net, and the thing is that even if this is completely bogus and wrong, and there are no foreign troops, why are there so many people out there posting information to the effect that there are foreign troops here?
We just don't know what we can trust and what we can't. We just know that the quote-unquote officials keep lying to us and spying on us and trying to take our rights away.
Well, it appears to be exactly that, and perhaps no more. Perhaps it's just not... Maybe that's all there is. Maybe it's just, I'm looking for any foreign troops that are training here. Now, we know that there are joint bases around the country.
Right.
But
I remember the Russians in Colorado story. That one seemed pretty strange to me at the time, maybe a year ago, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's like OccupyCorporatism.com, that's kind of a scary title to start with. There's foreign troops and vehicles, that's before it's news. Why foreign troops and DHS vehicles across the U.S., that's before it's news also. There's foreign troops and armored vehicles spotted in America's same place, Nashua, New Hampshire. That's from ruvr.ru, which I presume is you can get a suffix on anything. But apparently that's a Russian site. InfoWars has got foreign troops. This is from July 27 last year. Foreign troops to confiscate American guns under U.S. treaty. Who knows? There's there's just so much chaff being thrown up there. You can't really tell where the airplane is.
Well,
you know?
Okay, then that's the perfect point to make this transition real quick then, because if it becomes a little difficult to determine and discern which is accurate, which is speculation and just straight out lunatic fringe. Talk about like real life solutions here, because what can any of us do at the end of the day? I mean, we can only really take control of our own little personal sphere. But you're a bit of a prepper, aren't you? A little bit of a guy that just says that it makes more sense to get a little bit more prepared than you are today, and think, what if there's a tornado, a tsunami, an earthquake, a civil disruption, a biological weapon, or a world war? You tend to think that it's better to be prepared than not prepared, right? Like nuts and bolts?
I do, but it's funny. There's a little website. I can't remember what the name of it is, like ZZAZ or something like that. But I got the quote of the week about a month ago, and I didn't even remember saying it. But it was, I said, how do we prepare? And what are we preparing for? That's a good one.
Uh-huh. How about everything?
So, I mean, the Greeks say, hey, you need good food, good air, good water, and hopefully good dreams at some point.
Hey,
So that's about it. No, you go ahead.
Well, real quick, something that's kind of breaking within the past couple hours here. I just want to get your thoughts on it. U.S. is charging Edward Snowden with espionage.
Yeah, how about that?
Yeah. So, I mean, is it now a crime to alert people that the Constitution is being subverted? It's now a crime to say that our clear-cut Fourth Amendment right against unreasonable search and seizure, which I'd say a dragnet of everybody on the planet is kind of unreasonable. I couldn't think of anything less reasonable than that. It seems blatant. I mean, how could this guy face charges for pointing out that the Constitution and the Bill of Rights is being usurped,
well,
if you will?
It's just like, I don't know if you heard that soundbite of this guy saying, I do law, and this cop says to him, well, they don't care about the law. See, the problem is that if the people who are leading us don't care about the law, then there it is. They don't care about the law, and they'll do whatever they want. Like the guy who was thrown in jail calls his lawyer, finally gets a phone call, calls his lawyer and says, they throw me in jail. And the lawyer says, well, they can't do that to you. And he says, well, they've done it.
Right.
That's where we are. Here's what people need to understand. Unless there are lots and lots and lots of us, there's nothing we can do about this. And we can talk about preparing, but again, prepare for what? We can go to the polls. Well, the elections are next year. And then what? This last election, in my opinion, was stolen. People voting multiple times, and then that classy. This should tell you everything you need to know about the left. And that's when Michael Moore gets his grandmother to say, if Mitt Romney manages to steal this election, we will burn this bleep bleep down. I'm just like, are you serious? Wow. You got a little old lady to say this? So
what about the theory, John, that with all of the NSA spy tactics, all the people in government and even in the Supreme Court, they've been blackmailed into following an agenda that they don't believe in because that's their only out at this point?
They have been.
These are the stories I'm hearing.
My opinion is that they already have been. Look, these guys, these so-called leaders and legislators, they maintain insurance that we cannot get. They vote themselves pay. If they're in a meeting or something, they can when that meeting adjourns, they can call their stockbroker and say, buy a X amount of shares of such and such, or dump this or that. We're about to do something, and this is all completely legal.
Unless you're Martha Stewart.
Yeah, I mean, how do you bring a corrupt government before the law? How do you prosecute a corrupt government under the law? You can't. I mean, that's like saying, well, they should have just arrested Adolf Hitler. Oh, really? And who's going to do that? You know, Bloomberg wants to take the guns away from everybody, but he's got his goon squad around him, and they're all extremely heavily armed.
Oh, yeah.
Who are we going to talk to about that?
Well, I heard a conversation the other day about domestic abuse, and it was, well, I have a restraining order. This woman was on there. She's a concealed carry, and it was, well, she hears people say, well, I have a restraining order, and she's like, that is a piece of paper. You're dead if he connects with you. You need to defend yourself. A piece of paper cannot defend you. Well, he's not allowed to do it. Oh, yeah, laws stop bad people from doing bad things. It's the same thing with the gun control debate. You know, it's not just domestic abuse. It's with everything. And
you know, Brian, about the only thing that we can do is find ourselves some leaders. First of all, we are not where the buck stops. This world does not belong to us. These very bodies that we're standing in do not belong to us. They don't. Now, I'm very sorry if I have to sound like, well, no, actually. In God Almighty, who is watching, who created all of this, and according to the scriptures, will only put up with shenanigans from a given group of people for just so long before he smacks them. Sometimes smacks them clean out of existence and they never come back ever again. So we have to find, or they have to find us, the leaders who are charismatic, but not in a manner that subverts the Constitution, but which upholds the Constitution. Unfortunately, the political game in this country is all about popularity. You know, like The Voice or whatever it is, American Idol, whatever. It's not just how good is the performance. It's how many votes did the people send in over their cell phones.
Oh yeah.
You know, if you were the Queen of the May, that's. So we have to find some leaders that are smart, who love the Constitution, who have vision, and who are willing to have microscopes probe every aspect of their lives. Selfless, true statesmen who really want to serve humanity. We may be a little bit late on this one. As a matter of fact, this phase of human existence on this planet may be wrapping up as we've known it for a long time. This soft chair that we've sat in for all these many years has not made us more fit. It has made us less fit. It has made us lazy. If you combine laziness and convenience and all this voyeurism, which is exemplified by all of these reality shows and, you know, all this nudity and just, you know, all the sexuality on TV, it's like, you know, everybody likes that stuff, but there is such a thing as discretion, there is such a thing as modesty and so forth. When you take all of these things and combine that with 70% of the population that statistically is on some sort of a medication, you have a recipe for a population that just really doesn't care and is not going to engage. And I'm afraid that by the time they are willing to engage, they'll already be having the cuffs and shackles slipped on them, so to speak.
And there's more.
I just don't think these people are going to spring into action soon enough, and I hope they do, because, you know, we're just making a couple of targets out of ourselves as getting on these various media and squawking about it. But that's all we can do, because if I'm going to go, that's fine, but I'm not going to go easy. You know, I at least want to go down protesting it and maybe even fighting it if it comes down to it. Government has been hijacked by a criminal regime, and while Barack Obama may not be the head of the serpent, so to speak, he's the one that's visible. And when you take everything from the BP oil spill to Fast and Furious to the Justice Department going against Arizona for trying to enforce the law, to then Benghazi, then the CIA scandal, and all of these other things that he has done or not done, it's like, why is this person still in office? Why have articles of impeachment not been filed? Well, because then we'd have Biden. Notice we haven't seen much out of that buffoon in the last few months.
A ghost.
They've got him on the way down low.
A ghost.
Well, I think John Berner is probably a better choice than our current vice president. But I got to tell you, John, not by much.
John's from my home state, and I'm ready to send him packing along with Lindsey Graham and John McCain myself.
We really need to throw all of these people out. We're done. These people have done nothing but enrich themselves and make deals back and forth, and then just look at us and go, well, you need to pay us more. It's like, let me get this straight. You want me to work for half of the year effectively for free so that you can do what?
It's a great scam if you can pull it off.
I mean, and this president has done nothing but play golf. Oh, they've just been living the high life. Well, enjoy it, because he's going to go down in history as the worst president this country ever had. And on the other hand, if we survive this, maybe the best thing that ever happened to this country, because we're going to get a real good taste of what it's like to have a real no-kidding socialist attempt to fundamentally transform America. He said that's what he was going to do, and so far it looks to me like he's doing wonder how long everybody's going to be able to stomach it.
Well, and I said two things. I said that the best thing that happened with Romney not getting in is that at least all those neocons that defended all the bad stuff, whether it's the Patriot Act, go down the laundry list of things Bush was up to, at least those neocons didn't go back to sleep thinking, hey, our guy's in office now. They're still going, and they're still pushing to restore the Constitution.
You have some decent people up there in Washington, but you've also got everything from whoremongers to pedophiles. You got everything up there. Because there's the idiot Anthony Weiner. I mean, what kind of a public figure would display himself over social media like that, and then is so absolutely, in his abject stupidity, decides he's going to run for office again? I mean, who are these people? They're megalomaniacal perverts in many cases. Not all of them, but certainly enough of them. And you know what they say? It doesn't take very this with the fact that you saw the dive the stock market took, right?
Oh, yeah.
China is having a real problem. Their production is dropping. They're putting themselves in a position, or they've put themselves, or allowed themselves to be put in the position of not being able to loan all this money anymore. And they also have a labor force problem because their one-child policy is about to bite them. They're not going to have enough. They've built cities that aren't occupied by anybody. They've built factories that aren't running. They've built all of this stuff, getting ready to take over the world. And I've said this many times on Coast to Coast AM, that we've been at this capitalism game a lot longer than they have. And they're going to blow and go for a little while, but it's all going to stop all at one time. And when it does, it's going to be ugly. And yet, when people look at this debt that we have, which is staggering, we're just a little bit under $17 trillion right now. All they'd have to do is just write off the interest, just like any credit card company would. It's like, John and Brian, you guys owe $4,000. But tell you what, you send us $2,600, and we'll close the account, and we're good. Okay. Okay. And your account's closed now. You understand you won't be able to do this again for a while. Okay, thank you. And that's how it should be done. That's what Iceland did. They just forgave the interest and said, no, we're just going to reset it to zero. Done deal. Starting over. That's all we have to do. So why continue? What possible reason, Brian, could there be for the Federal Reserve to continue to pump money into this economy, which is the only thing that's keeping the stock market propped up? Why would they do that? While borrowing money to pump into the system, it's absolutely insane. It's one of with absolute deliberation. It is a purposeful tanking of the entire world economy. Who knows? Maybe there are some evil geniuses up there that are so evil they just go, yeah, let it burn down. These idiots will all kill each other. The population of the planet, there will be, let's see, we got 6 billion people now, 7 billion now. Okay, 5 of them will be gone in about 6 months. 5 billion will be gone. We'll be down to 3 billion, and we can come up from our our lairs and marshal our military forces, and we can very easily keep 3 billion people under control. That's not a problem. I mean, it's entirely possible.
That's not far off from the worst-case scenario that is legitimate if you allow yourself to consider the what-ifs. There are military leaders in every country that plan domination of their neighbors, their own citizens, depending on the regime. There are bad people out there. Being defenseless doesn't make you safe from predators, you know?
Oh, no, not at all. And in fact, you know, tomorrow night on Coast to Coast AM, we have a what I'm calling the science fiction phantasmagoria,
Nice.
with 4 science fiction writers, 3 Hugo Award winners and 1 highly acclaimed. I'm just waiting for his Hugo, and I want to find out if from them, because the work is so voluminous that there's no way it'd take you 3 years to get through half of it, and that's if you did nothing but read all the time. So I want to find out if they've already written some scenarios that appear to be rolling out in our lives. What have they written about that's come to pass, and what have they written that may come to pass, and what have they written about future civilizations? And in these stories, did they survive the cataclysmic condition that I think that we're about to find ourselves in on the planet? And really centuries, starting with Jules Verne and H.G. Wells and all those people. Then came Bradbury and Heinlein and Asimov and Clarke, and Dick and all those other guys, and they're gone now. So
and they're visionaries that left their work behind. Whether it's they give you a template of things to, you know, and that's kind of at the end of the day what the Bible is too. It's a story of things that might have happened in the past, giving you an idea of don't do these things because these types of bad things tend to happen. That's why I like sci-fi. You live in a world in Doctor Who where the cars take over and can drive you and drown you into a lake. Oh, well, that could never happen. I pulled up 2 stories where it could. You got to look into the future.
My father
to
said
understand
that the Bible
present.
was the greatest book for living ever written, and I think he's right.
Well,
and I think if you'll look to it, you'll find comfort in it, and you'll find advice in it, and you'll find that if you do the things that are in that you're told, if you do this, it's going to make problems. Well, go ahead. You want to be a dumpster, give it a shot. See if it works out well. It won't. And my question is, if all of this is just one big cartoon, just, oh, you know, that Bible stuff, that's just, somebody just made that. Well, okay, fine. I mean, this character named Lawrence Krauss, he's out of the University of Arizona State University. He wrote this book called The Universe from Nothing, and it's like, yeah, but a real scientist, before he starts making his statements, gathers all of the evidence. And you haven't done that. All you've done is make a philosophical assertion. But he actually made this comment. This is a degreed. This is a doctor, and he made. I thought illiterate meant you couldn't read or write. Oh well.
Yeah, well, it goes to show what the experts are going to give you. You know, we know what the propagandists are going to give us on the dinosaur media, as I call it. I can't even call it mainstream anymore, but, you know, the experts are all experts until they're proven wrong. And
yeah, now I'm not ready to throw up my hands and just say, you know, like the old boy that was flying back in the 20s, he was flying mail, and he was in a terrible thunderstorm, and the plane was really fighting him. It was terrible. He just said, he threw up his hands, took his hands off the controls, just threw them up in the air and said, "You take it, God, I've done all I can." He said, "You know what? God cracked it up." So we're not going to do that. I think what we should do, Brian, is watch and see how these various stories are handled over the next couple of weeks, and be prepared to adjust our strategy accordingly, and also our tactics. But the fact is as long as we have our wind and our strength, what we need to do is we need to recognize that the Constitution was written by visionary people who knew human behavior and who knew government's behavior, and wrote into that Constitution safeguards to protect us from the government. It's not a good thing when the people are afraid of the government. It is a good thing when the government is afraid of the people.
absolutely.
And I think we need to make them very afraid that we're going to, at minimum, throw them out of office.
assert our God-given rights to liberty and the pursuit of happiness, not having some creepy stalker lurking in the bushes, listening to what you're saying through your window and looking in on you. That's what's happening digitally with the government, and it's no different. It's time to take out a restraining order against our own federal government. I've said it for the past few weeks.
File lawsuits, organize groups, protest. Tell the sponsors of these news programs that lie that you're going to organize and you're going to boycott them. We're going to boycott the products that your sponsors have on your program for sale. As it is, Fox News is down to drugs and alternately lawyers that are willing to sue if you took these drugs and experienced a bad effect from them. So,
what a dynamic! Get them coming and going.
Yeah, I mean, you just got to hit them high and hit them low, and just tell them, look, just remember what your buddy John Wells says. If you want something to go away, quit buying it.
I like it. You
know what I mean?
Well, let me leave you with this then. Tell us what you are selling that people could go buy. You have a website, caravantomidnight.com. I actually, true story, I don't tell fake stories, but true story. My buddy, he's been going through some health issues. He hung out with me last weekend, and he sent me a random text before he came by. He's like, hey, you know anywhere I can get like a radiation detector, like a Geiger counter or something? I'm like, yeah, go to caravantomidnight.com, actually. I got a dude that does that. So tell people once again what you're doing over there and what they can get there.
We really like, we started off with Russian-made radiation detectors because we were able to get them inexpensively, and they're good units. We can still get them, but the ones that we really like and that most people buy are slightly more expensive. And they're a few $100. It's not like $800, but it's a few $100. But it's something that can provide you some reasonable assurance that the building materials and your indoor air and your outdoor air, and even some jewelry. I was talking to Vince about some jewelry that Vince Mazer is the engineer, and his company is Mazer Instruments. He's in Colorado, and this stuff is U.S. made. This jewelry was hot. He takes a Geiger counter with him into antique stores because he can determine if certain kinds of glass are truly antique glass, because some of that stuff's radioactive, and it's just really good. Now, detecting radiation in food is very, very difficult. However, if you were to wave a Geiger counter around a fish or something and it indicated something, then most certainly you would not want to eat it.
Right.
If it's hot enough to set off a Geiger counter, then you got a problem. But let's keep in mind that all that bluefin tuna from a year and a half ago that was caught off the California coast, they all tested positive for very high levels of cesium. And the reason that I went to Fukushima is what started all of this. And notice, not a word about Fukushima. Well, I can tell you, my brother, not a thing has changed over there. That thing is still belching out tons of radioactive seawater in an attempt to keep those spent rods cool, because the spent rods are more highly radioactive than the unspent fuel, than the new rods. They never built their reprocessing plant, and they've got some real problems. And there's a virtual news blackout on the effects of that disaster over there. So we sell products that take some of our water purification devices are radiation particle specific, and they remove fluoride and chlorine. Neither of those two things are good for you at all. Chlorine was used to keep troops docile in World War II. Prisoners docile by the Germans and the Russians both used it. And UCLA finished a study, I think it was a 14-month study, and they finished it up about 6 months ago, where they concluded positively that fluoride in water retards the mental development of children, period, end of story. So that's what we do. We don't have anything to do with food right now, but as far as clean air and clean water, we got that covered. And so if you go to caravantomidnight.com, you can get yourself one of these. And all we do with any money that we make on it, all we do is roll it over into new product. And we're
Well,
I don't hear a thing.
Yeah. No, of course. It was one of those little moments right there. But absolutely, it is caravantomidnight.com. I just sent my buddy there last week. I've checked it out. I'm overdue to get something because like you said, all that stuff that's been floating around, it's probably canned up right now. It might be on your local shelf, and hell, it might even be around your neck as jewelry. I mean, it's a good tool to have in your toolbox to be able to know if it's a bad day or not, or you're purchasing a bad product or not. So, definitely take a look at caravantomidnight.com. And tomorrow the show, once again, it's called the Sci-Fi Phantasmagorium. Did I get it close?
That's close. I said science fiction, but I kind of like sci-fi, too.
Roll with whatever you like, buddy. Well, hey, I'll tell you what. It's always a pleasure having you on the program, and we talked off the air a couple days ago, and I was just like, it's timely that we have this chat about Hastings, the NSA, and I want to wrap with this. I just want to leave you with this because you said a few minutes ago, you had said that what we're doing is kind of putting a target on our backs, and while that is true, I've had this conversation with quite a few friends and close family as well, and at this point, I just feel, John, like when everything is being gathered, when everything is being data mined and we're being spied upon to the level that we are right now, there actually is no dark, shady cave to go hide and retreat into. The only play I feel like I have left, and I'm a poker player, I like to, to try to pretend I'm strong, pretend I'm weak, and there's different strategies for different situations, but I feel like my only strategy is to talk louder, because I don't know how much longer I'll have the internet. I don't know how much longer things will be cool. And I just kind of feel like, target be damned, I'm not looking for any problems. I'm just looking for all of us to chill and have a good time and have equal liberty. I think most people are in that same boat. And I just feel like I got to get louder while I can. I don't feel like I have any other option, John, There
comes a point in every man and every woman's life when you just have to say, oh, to hell with it. Let's go for it. Because the alternative is so much worse than anything that might happen to us for having tried to do something about this. So I applaud you for your work, and if I pick up anything, I'll let you know, and if you pick up anything, let me know, okay?
Absolutely, pal. Appreciate the time, and to be continued. We'll keep this going. It's a pleasure that we are both walking this strange, lonely road together, because sometimes you just look around and go, does anyone else get this? Is anyone else really understanding this? And every now and then, what was the line from Forrest Gump? Hey, Bubba, lean up against me, and I'll lean up against you. We'll keep our heads out of the mud. Well, we'll just keep going.
Just remember what was said in V for Vendetta. God is in the rain.
God is in the rain. Well, I'm going to have to watch the movie again now. I'm just probably going to have to go out and buy it. Maybe not with a credit card, though, so it doesn't tip off the feds, all right?
Exactly.
John, thanks again for joining us. We'll be talking again soon, all right, pal?
Pleasure, Brian. Thank you.
Take care. That is John B. Wells, good friend of the program. Really cool guy. Been a fan of him on Coast to Coast ever since we noticed that he was doing his thing over there. Hell, we've been big fans of Coast to Coast AM 15 years. Been big fans of anybody trying to get at the truth. Let's break that down. Anytime you try to get to the truth, you never know what you're getting. You never know if you're finding the right story or the wrong story, disinformation or misinformation or sloppy information. You just never know. But what I love about the alternative media, is that we go places and try to look into things that it seems like, well, why is nobody else looking into this? Why does it seem like nobody's covering this story? And you go. And you're willing to fall in the mud. You're willing to fall down, scrape your knee, and you stand up and you go again. You run the race while you can, and you jog when you have to. And then you walk. And you crawl. And hell, if you have to stop, you pause for a minute, and you get back and you start walking again, and then maybe jogging and then running. And over here at thenewamericanmedia.com, we just had our 2-year anniversary. Our tagline is, we're seeking truth, challenging dogma, and having fun. We do sports shows called The Unhappy Hour. I'm a Cleveland sports fan. What do you want from me? We never celebrate any championships. Hooray to LeBron James for his championship yesterday, by the way. Tongue-in-cheek. Yeah, I mean, sometimes you gotta disconnect and have fun and watch sports and American Idol and The Voice and go out and have fun, but end of the day, this is the serious stuff. This is the important stuff. I tend to feel that if there is an eternal soul, and I do believe that there is an eternal soul, there's room for debate on that. I welcome that conversation. That's why this show's called Agree to Disagree. But my point is that if there is an eternal soul, and I get judged on what I did here, am I going to be proud, or am I going to be ashamed? And I'm not looking for any problems. I just feel like problems are fine to me, and I'm a solutions guy. I'm an idea guy. I've always been an idea guy. Hell, I got so frustrated yelling at the television for 5 years in a row. The end of Bush, and 6 years. End of Bush, and then into Obama. Just, the TV can't hear me, so I'm going to become the media that I want to see. Hell, it's a work in progress, It's a 2-year little... It's a work in progress. I'll tell you what, we're gaining some momentum, and it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun connecting with people like John B. Wells. So please go check out his website, caravantomidnight.com. Seriously, go on Coast to Coast and sign up for their Coast Insider. It's like $5 a month or something. You have access to 3 years of shows. Go back. Listen to John B. Wells' interview, Michael Hastings. Go do it. Go listen to it. I heard it live. Listen to his interview with Michael Hastings. Check it out. Special thanks to Zach Barris on our earlier program, The Unhappy Hour. Follow him on Twitter at ZBARIS. And for everybody here at the TNAM Radio Network, my name's Brian Engelman. This has been Agree to Disagree. And I love you guys. Keep fighting for liberty. Stand up. Get some backbone. Stand up tall. Say what you mean. Be kind. Try to help people out. Get prepared. Be smart. Be kind. Be ready. And just keep being awesome. Until next time, everyone.
You are listening to the New American Media.